I can't imagine what type of psychopath. Like, you you would have to be fucking crazy to read the Bible from beginning to end. So I guess my contention is that the biggest religion ever is Christianity. Now, what I'm saying is what what brought me specifically back to the Bible and why I feel like I have to talk about it isn't because I have the ultimate truth of it, isn't because I know it the most. I know it the least. But what I've recognized in it, I don't hear being said. So I have to say it. Like, people talk the greatest story ever told. In a sense, that's true, but only in so much as the Trojan horse inside the Trojan horse, the Russian doll inside the Russian doll. And it's crazy how simple the illiterate version of the Bible is. The illiterate version of the Bible is just the common notions we have if we go to church and hear the blah blah blah. But if you start reading it at the beginning, now I've only gotten up to, at this point, Judges. And it's taken me several weeks listening to the audio Bible, taking notes, right? But it's not just like a verse here or verse there or cherry picked, as they say. And I actually don't. People harsh on the idea of cherry picking, but it's like, well, you're in a cherry orchard. What do you pick? Right? You're in a cherry orchard. What do you pick? Well, I'm not interested in the grasses. I'm not interested in the leaves or the bark. Right? When I'm in the cherry orchard, yeah, I'm gonna pick the cherries. Having that said, when people quote unquote cherry pick, I think that's a bad term. We ought to pick the cherries. But when people quote unquote cherry pick things, give a sermon, so you go to church every week, right? You go to church every week for a year. You might hear somewhere between 50 and 150 verses interpreted by one or two people. But when you go from beginning to end of the Bible, the first several books, it's awful. It's maddening. But yet there is a certain truth to it, but the truth that is in it is related to the circle of life, which is the lie. Believing in the circle of life is the lie. So people always set noble, savage, primitive cultures against quote unquote Christian histories, except for the fact that there has rarely ever been a Christian culture that was Christian. insofar as the noble savage is concerned, as being in harmony. Harmony? People don't understand what harmony means mathematically. The circle of life is death. The circle of life is the snake eating its own tail. The circle of life is the king cobra eating other snakes, which looks like a snake eating its own tail. That's not the truth. The circle is not the truth in that sense. The spiral. We're a spiral. But anyway, what's different about now, like, we're looking to politicians, we're looking to the church, we're looking to leaders, we're looking to leaders in business and in finance, and personal motivation, personal development. But until we, each and every person, stands up, not only for themselves, but for others, it's never going to happen. The revolution will not be televised, but it will be on the interweb. For instance, I've been working at this job, and this is this summer I've had more time working at this job than ever. Thank goodness, because I go to this one. It's a big property, to me it's a big property. I guess in the grand scope of the world, it's like small potatoes, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like between a $2 million and $10 million property, right? So, to me, I make like mid 30,000 a year, which I often have to remind myself is in the 1 percentile of the world. Like, I'm the 1%. So I have a responsibility. Yeah, I am a broken, destroyed soul, spirit. So I have a responsibility. At least in theory, I've dedicated my life to that responsibility. Which is why I talk about things. If I don't hear something talked about, that's what I talk about. Or I try. And I try to do it in the best way possible. So far, I'm a miserable failure. Yet, I hope this practice, I'm speaking to my phone. I'm speaking to this reflection of myself as I see myself in my phone. In some sense, perhaps I'm speaking to you. Perhaps in 300, 500, 1,000 years from now, this will mean something because of the context. Because the influencers of the age aren't speaking to what comes tomorrow. So it's a big gamble, I guess you could say, on my part, even though it's not. I'm not gambling, I know. That kind of trailed off. But anyway, Like, we all have to get into it. There is no authority that's going to tell us. And what I've learned from just listening to an audio Bible, because I go to work and it's like, and I take notes. So I'm listening to this audio Bible chronologically. And I take notes when I can, but sometimes because of the tools I have in my hand, I can't take notes. So there's very important things I miss that I should have taken notes on, but I didn't. And there are other things that I take notes on. And I list in the particular audio Bible that I've been listening to, it has Deuteronomy and Joshua in the same, because it's a audio Bible, but it's separated into, I think, like 17 parts. So I'll download this part, that part, whatever. And anyway, like the third or fourth part, the third part has Deuteronomy and Joshua in the same. Like the third part of this audio Bible has Deuteronomy and Joshua in the same part. But like biblically, like so far as the Torah or the Septuagint goes, like it's bridging the gap so far as the Tanukh goes. It's bridging the gap between the Torah and the Nevi'im. Or in the Septuagint, between like the first and second part of the three parts. But I was listening to it. I listened to it like 3 days in a row, maybe 4 or 5, because it was like Friday, Monday, Tuesday, but a little bit over the weekend too. In the meantime, so that's what I did at work, and in the meantime, I searched probably about 1,000 pages on Akhenaten on the internet. Took maybe a couple hundred screenshots. And just like, for instance, taking my notes, okay, so like I'm a house painter. I'm listening to an audiobook. I'm working at this dude's like second property, third, fourth property. I know he has a property in Rhode Island and Florida. So I've been up there for like a couple months, more or less. I'm there every year. Usually I'm only there for a couple few weeks in the beginning and a couple few weeks at the end of the summer. This year I'm here more because he talked to my boss and was like, "Hey, shit ain't being kept up with, you know." So I'm there more. But anyway, I've been mostly alone because it's really fussy work. It's the fussiest job of any of the jobs that I do. In one sense, I kind of hate it, yet it also appeals to my nature. Fussy intricacies. My pessimist says this is horseshit. My optimist says, I like this. Anyway, I overheard the property manager giving the property manager talking to the homeowner about the Wi-Fi login. So I've also been listening to some Spotify while I'm working. Today I listened to it was Jordan Peterson and Lex Friedman. I think he posted it today. What was her name? Yeonmi Park from North Korea. That'll come up more later. but that how that all relates to like Old Testament harlotism, the sex the sex traffic the sex trafficking around the world, in China, North Korea, the harlot in the Bible, all that shit. But also the secret encoding. People harsh on the Bible for good reason. But we are in the apocalypse, the revelation. So if you're like big into the whole like Jesus thing, okay, that's good. Just don't believe any of the motherfuckers who are saying shit. Or how do I say it right? Because everybody gets it wrong, even though the story's right. And I keep making these videos because I'm trying to find a way to say it right, and I haven't found the way yet. So, in a sense, like, everything I've ever said has been wrong. But I'm trying to find a way to match the shape up here with what comes out of here and make it instant. The elevator speech. I'm trying to boil down that elevator speech. I haven't gotten there. But I'm also going to leave the breadcrumbs. But anyway, what I was saying is that like we have to do this. No one else is going to do it. The thing is people are in positions of power. So even people who know the truth, people in government, people in academia, people in the church. Right? And we set those things against each other, but yet those are the institutions. Like, or Hollywood. So basically, most people who are anything at all like me place their trust in either the government, one of the parties, or an alternative party. Hollywood, the church, philosophy, the humanities, science, the philosophy of science. But anybody in those positions, if they wanted to speak to the truths that I'm trying to speak to, if anyone in any of those fields that I just mentioned was to be like, not even to be like, if they knew telepathy were real, they couldn't say it. They would have to talk around it. Otherwise, they'd be fired, disgraced. They'd no longer be able to spread their message. The brilliant people who have put together, brilliant people put together this phone so that I could search what other brilliant people built with words, with pictures, with histories. But because they're all part of the system. The few people who can reach across disciplines and mindsets. The few people who can do that, or the relative, I mean, it's actually an enormous number, because we're talking about a relatively small percentage of 7 billion people. So it's actually a shitload of people. But if they speak, they jeopardize their place. Now, I'm a house painter. And generally speaking, my customers kind of like me because I do a pretty good job. I also work in a relatively, I mean, to me, it's an affluent area. My dad says I make below market value, but my dad also doesn't realize, like, how cushy my job is. I'm not humping it like day labor, day laborers, you know, like the stereotypical Mexican day laborer works 15 fucking hundred times harder than I do. Is a better person than I am. So stereotypically, you might think of like a white guy being like, fuck them Mexican dudes. And I've heard it, from people I work with, even though it's actually, you don't hear it a lot around here because there's not a lot in where I live. But trust me, if Mexican people came here, man, there's all these people holding up Black Lives Matter signs around here, which is good in one sense, yet complete silence around all the motherfucking Jamaicans coming up here picking fruit. You know, they'll stand in the middle of Hanover, New Hampshire, or fucking Woodstock, Vermont, holding their Black Lives Matter signs. But on Fridays when I go to cash my check and I'm standing in line behind 20 fucking Mexican dudes making Western Union fucking cashing their check and making Western Union payments, and behind fucking 10 Jamaican dudes who are buying like shopping carts full of bulk fucking rice. Because they're up here picking our fucking fruit. Where's all the Black Lives Matter people then? Like social virtue signaling, social shaming. And I'm part of the problem. I'm not part of the solution. I'm not. In that sense. So all this speaking I'm doing isn't the solution. I'm trying to convince myself to get my fucking ass out there to make a fucking difference. And I hope I get there. People act like you're some kind of psychopath if you want to die on your fucking cross. I hope to fucking God I die on the cross, man. And make a difference to kill butchery.